All right, let's dive into something that might sound kind of crazy when you first hear it. It comes from the educator Jessica Lahey, and it's this. What if everything we're doing to help our kids, all that love and protection, is actually the very thing holding them back? And what if the real secret to their success is letting them fail?
Wow, that's a powerful statement, right? What Lahey is really saying here is that our best intentions, our instinct to shield our kids from every little bit of discomfort, has backfired. It's accidentally created a generation that's terrified of failure. And that fear, well, it's become a huge roadblock on their path to success.
I mean, it's a tough question to ask ourselves, isn't it? Because we've all done it. We pack their lunch, we're the emergency forgotten homework delivery service, we try to smooth out every single bump on the road. And we do it all out of love. But could those very actions be preventing our kids from learning how to be resourceful, how to be persistent on their own?
And that brings us to this central idea, what Lahey calls the overparenting paradox. It's this weird catch-22 where, because we want our kids to succeed so badly, we've basically become these human bulldozers, clearing every single obstacle out of their way. But here's the twist. It's those exact obstacles, the setbacks, and the mistakes that are the raw materials for building resilience.
And look, this isn't just a theory. The data starts to paint a picture. Get this. Back in 2012, a full 36% of young adults, we're talking 18 to 31 years old, were still living at home with their parents. People have started calling this a failure to launch, and more, researchers are linking it directly to this culture of overprotective parenting.
Okay, so how in the world did we get here? The first thing to say is this isn't about blaming individual parents. Not at all. The reality is parents today are kind of caught in the middle of a huge cultural shift. It's like a giant pendulum of parenting advice that has been swinging wildly for the last 100 years.
Just look at this thing. Back in the 1920s, you had so-called experts telling parents, hey, don't trust your instincts. Then fast forward to 1946, and Dr. Spock comes along and says the complete opposite. You know more than you think you do. Then the 70s brought in this big emphasis on constant contact and nurturance, and today? Well, today that pendulum seems to be stuck way out on the extreme end. Total overparenting, and it's all fueled by this cloud of anxiety.
All right, so let's get into the science of it all. What's the secret sauce here? Why is letting go so incredibly powerful? Well, this is kind of the big aha moment of this whole thing, and it all boils down to one single crucial concept: motivation. We're talking about intrinsic motivation. You know what that is? You've seen it. It's that natural curiosity that toddlers have, where they'll spend an hour just trying to fit a block into a hole. It's that internal drive to figure something out just for the sheer joy of it. Not for a sticker, not for a grade, not for a reward. This right here, this is the engine of real learning, and we have to protect it. And this quote from psychologist Edward Deci just nails it. He's one of the pioneers in this field, and he had this almost blasphemous thought, as he puts it. He started to wonder, wait a minute, what if all the tools we think we're using to motivate kids, the rewards, the rules, the whole system, what if they're the villains? What if they're actually killing the natural love of learning? I mean, that's a pretty radical idea, right?
This goes way back to a famous experiment in 1949 with monkeys. A researcher named Harry Harlow gave these monkeys some simple mechanical puzzles. And you know what? They loved them. They just played with them for hours, totally absorbed, driven by nothing but their own curiosity. So then the scientists decided to introduce a reward. Solve the puzzle, get a raisin. Seems logical, right? Wrong. The result was absolutely shocking. The monkeys who got the raisin, they solved the puzzles slower, and they gave up more often. The reward actually made them worse at the task.
So here's the crucial takeaway, the big lesson from the monkeys and the raisins. External rewards, and it doesn't matter if it's a raisin for a monkey or $10 for an A on a report card, they can feel like control. And that feeling of being controlled just short-circuits our natural internal drive. It flips a switch in our brain that turns play into work, and in the process, it kills the very curiosity we were trying to encourage in the first place. So, if rewards can backfire, what actually works? Well, the science says that real, lasting motivation is built on what they call the 3 pillars. It's a simple recipe. First, you need autonomy, that feeling that you're in the driver's seat of your own life. Second is competence, that deep satisfaction you get from getting good at something. And third is connection, the need to feel like you belong and what you're doing matters. Our whole job as parents, really, is to create an environment where these 3 things can grow. Okay, so that's the science. That's the why. But now for the big question. How do we actually do this?
How do we take these big ideas and apply them in the real, messy world of parenting? How do we shift from being a controller to being a connector?
Right. So how do we actually foster that autonomy, that competence, and that connection at home? How do we get from the textbook theory to the, chaotic reality of family life? Well, it's not a quick fix. It actually means changing our habits, the very words we use, and maybe even rethinking what it means to be a good parent. Let's break it down. Look at this comparison. On the left, you've got the controlling style. And let's be honest, this is our default mode when we're stressed or in a hurry, right? Here, I'll just do it. But the goal is to live in that column on the right, to be what they call an autonomy-supportive parent, someone who guides instead of dictates, who allows for natural consequences, and who values the effort, not just the A+. It's really about a fundamental shift from being a manager of your child's life to being their trusted mentor.
And even the way we praise our kids is a huge piece of this puzzle. It seems so harmless to say, "You're so smart." But that kind of praise actually creates what's called a fixed mindset. It tells a kid that intelligence is a thing you either have or you don't. And that makes them afraid to try hard things. Because what if they fail? Then they won't look smart. But if you praise the process, "Wow, you must have worked really hard on that," that fosters a growth mindset. It teaches them that their abilities can grow with effort. And that is what builds true resilience.
So what does this look like day to day? It looks like this. For laundry, instead of swooping in to refold their shirts perfectly, you let them go to school with a wrinkled shirt. They'll figure it out. For lunches, instead of packing it for them, you let them do it, even if it means they occasionally have to deal with a squished yogurt at noon. You see, the goal isn't a perfectly folded shirt or a pristine lunchbox. The goal is a kid who learns from real-world cause and effect.
Okay, let's zoom out. Because this is hard, right? It's messy. It's uncomfortable to watch our kids struggle. So what's the long-term payoff? What's the real gift of failure?
Because at the end of the day, this was never really about the laundry, was it? It's about building character. The real goal is to raise a confident, competent, and resilient young adult. Someone who is ready to face the world on their own terms because they've had practice. They've faced challenges, they've figured out their own solutions, and they've built the deep, unshakable confidence that comes from knowing, "I can handle this."
And that really brings us to the core choice we have to make as parents. Jessica Lahey puts it perfectly. It's a trade-off. We have to be willing to put our kids' long-term developmental and emotional needs ahead of their short-term happiness. It's about choosing to play the long game.
So, ultimately, it boils down to this one final question. Letting our kids struggle? Yeah, it's uncomfortable. For us. So the choice really is your child's long-term competence or your own short-term comfort. When you frame it like that, the right choice becomes pretty clear, doesn't it?